Hey guys, thanks for tuning into Aqua Outdoors. For today's video, we're going to be talking about how to put a small Scotty lake troller downrigger on your kayak. Now, living here in the Northeast, there's tons of deep water lakes for people to fish, and a lot of times some of those finicky freshwater fish, you have to make sure you have really good depth control in order to bring those in if you want to be trolling. Now, with a kayak of this size, you would of course go to a bigger downrigger. The one I chose though was the Scotty. It's smaller and portable, and it's something that's not too cumbersome if I want to be fishing multiple lines. Alright, so I decided to mount my Scotty lake troller on the left side of my seat here. And the reason why is even though I'm right-handed, it was nice to kind of have it out of the way of my fish finder, which is dropping over the side with that Scotty system as well. And this way I can run the downrigger on one side and then a lead core setup on the right. To attach this downrigger to your kayak, I went ahead and used the Scotty gear track system or rail mount that's down here. It allows it that if I don't want to use this, I can switch it out for a rod holder, cup holder, you name it, you can attach that on here. So what I do when I'm done using it, since the nice thing with this is you can leave that pedestal mount right where it is, give it a quick turn, and you're ready to put it on the trailer. Unlike when you're fishing from a boat, when you're fishing from a kayak, you don't have to use as much weight for that downrigger ball or the cannonball that goes on the bottom. What I recommend for this is somewhere around maybe a 2-pound if you can get it, or a 3-pound ball is totally fine. That's what I'm using on this. You can purchase on Amazon or some of your local stores, probably have those as well. Always good to support your local businesses. This one here, it's attached, of course, to line that's going up here. This isn't the stock line. If you look up online, there's a ton of people that complain in the comments about this. Just to go check out Amazon, complaining about this nasty hum that you get from that metal or steel cable as it goes in the water. And I can tell you, when I did it at first, it's super loud, it's super annoying. So one thing I did, and so I'm not dragging all that steel across the bottom, is I decided to opt for using a thick braided line on here. Alright, so the braided line that I ended up using was actually bow fishing line. I went for a 100-pound test. You don't need that, but it was a little bit thicker, and it seemed to go on the spool a little bit better. So you can purchase on Amazon or some of your local fishing stores if they happen to carry that. Bow fishing line, it's super cheap. Pull off that old steel cable, spool it up, and you're ready to go. Now on the Scotty box, they will say that every turn of the handle here on top is equal to 1 foot in depth. I'll say from following on my fish finder, it's pretty close, but as the spool gets a little bit shorter, it seems to get off a little bit. So by purchasing this bow fishing line, I actually went with the color white so that I could actually use some dye, whether it's going to be some permanent ink, or actually I was thinking to steal some of my fiance's nail polish. You can actually mark some of those depths, maybe every 5 feet or 10 feet, put a certain band, and that way you can have really control over what depth you're fishing. Now that being said, when I actually started to fish with this, you don't necessarily even need the nail polish because you can actually pick it up on your low rent. At least it did on mine. I was able to actually pick up that ball going across the bottom. Just pulls up as a steady bar going across your screen. So it's actually really nice. So you can see, where are those U's or those pings coming on your screen. And if you're hunting lake trout, doing some controlled depth, you're maybe 80 feet of water, you see they're down at holding at 70, suspended off the bottom. You can see where your ball is and drop it directly down in the same line as them. Absolutely killer. One key thing to also keep in mind when you're attaching this downrigger to your kayak is also going to be the orientation of the rod holder that you're going to use, because that's equally as important to the downrigger when you're fishing. So what I've done is use the flush mount Scotty rod holder attachment right down here, or accessory attachment, and with that I use one of their standard rocket launcher, quote unquote rocket launcher rod holders. Now these rod holders, you can adjust the height that you want. This one I have set for my downrigger. Your rod would come out here and it can bend nicely to catch you to match up with your ball. One thing to keep in mind, if it looks like it's too close, is when you're paddling with this type of setup, with that ball, since we're only using around that 3-pound to 2-pound, ball, it's going to trail a little bit behind you. Just like if you're on a boat, that 8-pound ball sometimes is going to pull back behind your boat. So with this, even though you've got the Scotty arm coming out here to the side for that downrigger, that ball is going to be slightly behind that. So with this, with the curve of your rod when it comes out, and I'll post a picture of that in the video when I was trolling for some lake trout, you can see that that comes around nicely, and when you get that fish, it's going to pull down, and you get that nice flick up, and you're ready to go. The key is you want to have a nice bend already in your rod so you can really see that flick, because if you're pulling, trolling on the other side with some lead core line, maybe talking on the radio to a friend who's out fishing, you can miss it if it's not a nice, if it's too subtle. So you want to make sure it's a nice big pop, and you're ready to go. This is a really great method for catching lake trout, landlocked salmon, and also I've had a ton of success using this actually for northern pike, which is great, especially if you're going right by where some streams dump out into lakes. You can troll right along above those weed beds that are down there. You can really control that depth. Troll one of those Williams spoons, absolutely killer. I hope this video was useful. If you have any questions or comments, drop them below. If you did this with your kayak and got another style you want to try, post it on there to get some discussion going. As always, thank you so much for tuning into Aqua Outdoors, and I hope you guys have some fun out in the water this season.